Today we're going to start Chapter 7 and we're going to learn how to read and write data using files. So in real life, you can't expect a user to always be in front of the computer entering information. Sometimes you want to read information from a file. For example, if I want to calculate your final grade as a student in my class, I'm not going to be I don't want to be sitting in front of the computer having a program that's asking, what is the student's grade on the classwork 1-1? What is the student's grade on the next classwork, on the next classwork, on the next classwork? And I'm typing number by number. And if I make a mistake, I have to start all over again. So what I want to do is I want to put all your grades in a file and maybe give that file to the program to process, to read the file, and maybe generate another file that has your letter grades. So working with files is very important in computer science and programming. Now, in general, I want to let you know that there are two types of files. There are text files, and those are files that can be read with any program, like Notepad. And then there are other files that are binary files, and binary files are files that need special programs to read. For example, if I send you a PDF file, yes, the PDF file contains text in it, but if I send you this file and you don't have Adobe Acrobat on your computer, you're not going to be able to read it. If I send you a PowerPoint file that just has text in it and you don't have PowerPoint on your computer, you're not going to be able to read it. So the files that we're going to be studying in this chapter are just the text files. Okay, we are going to learn sequential access to the files, meaning I start at the beginning of the file and I'm going to move down the file until I reach the end of the file. There is another way to access files, which is random access, meaning going to a file and saying start at line 10 or start at character 28. That is called random access. We are not going to cover random access in this course. So we're going to cover text files, and we're going to only do sequential access to these files, starting with the beginning of the file to the end of the file. So what are we going to learn? We're going to learn two things. We're going to read from the files, and we're going to also write to files. The files that we read from, we call those input files. The files that we write to are called output files. So we read in from input files, we write out to output files. Now, I need an object to refer to a file. We learned about variables before. We said variables can contain strings. They can be ints, they can be booleans, like true or false. They can be floats. Now, we're going to learn about a new type, which is file, a file object. And the way you get this file object, or you create this variable that's referring to a file, is using a function called open. And this open function takes the file that you want to open with its location, and then how you're going to open the file. Do you want to open the file to read from it or to write to it? Okay, so for mode, we're going to learn three modes. We're going to learn reading, which is R. We're going to learn W to write, and there's another mode A that we're also going to talk about in a little bit. Now, what is this handle? What is this variable? It's basically a wrapper to the class. What does it store? It stores the file, where it's located, and it also stores where in the file it has been reading. So this object that we're going to be creating is going to remember when you read from the file, it's going to remember what you read already. When you write to a file, it's going to remember where it wrote and where it needs to write next. Okay, so now let's look at the file that we need to pass. We need to tell it the location of the file. So there are two ways to do it. Number one, if the file is in the same location as your program, your Python program, you can just put the file name. If it's not in the same location where your file is located, your program is located, then you have to specify the location. Now, either you specify the location and you put 2 double slashes, or if you put 1 slash, you have to put this R, and this R refers to raw. So you're kind of saying this is a raw string. Don't use the slash as an escape character. So when it sees the slash n, it doesn't treat it like new line, or slash t as tab. So this is how we access the files. Next thing is writing. I can choose the mode as W or A. W means I want to write to a file. If the file doesn't exist, the program will create it. W means erase the contents of the file and write fresh. A means append to the file, just add to it. So how do we do that? I'm going to show you an example. So first we open the file with either W or A mode. We call a write method, giving it the string that we want to write. And then when we're done, we have to kind of save the file. So we click on close. We call a method called close to close the file. Let's look at an example. So let me create a new file for us to work with. So I'm going to save this file in my folder. And I'm going to create a new folder for chapter 7. So I'm going to just call this file chapter 7.1. So this is my Python file. So the first thing is I'm going to open the file for writing. So I'm going to say, let's say file handle equal to open. And I want to create a file called numbers.txt. And I want to write to it. Okay. And then I want to write to it some numbers, or actually let's call it pets. Okay. And I want to write to it, so I'm going to go to file H and say I want to write dog. I want to write cat. And I want to write bird. I forgot the right here. Okay, so I wrote 3 words to it, and now I'm done. I'm going to say close the file. Okay, and I'll show you what happens if you forget any of these. So here we have to close the file to save the contents. Let's run this program and see what happens. So nothing got printed because I don't have any print functions in there. But now let me go to that folder where I created my Python file. So I put in Python, chapter 7, and it's not there. You know what? I think Mu puts it in Mu. Let me just see where it saves it. So, yep, there it is in pets.txt. It's there. So here Mu is a little weird. It puts it in the path. It doesn't put it where the Python file was located. So let me go to this location, which is users, my username, and then Mu code. So let's go to that location. Okay, so let's go to C. Users, my username, Mu code, and there I'm going to find pets.txt. So if I open pets.txt, I should see the pets that I wrote. Now let's see what happened. I told it to write dog, it wrote dog. I told it to write cat, it wrote cat. I told it to write bird, it wrote bird. Now, did it put spaces between them or enter like print does? No, it doesn't. So if you want to write like special things like a space, for example, you have to manually put a space. If you want to put a new line, you have to manually put a new line. So let's close this file and let's save, stop the program, run it again. And now let's go check the file now. And now it has dog space cat, and then it went to the new line and it typed in bird. Notice that it erased the contents. Why? Because I used W. So when you use W, W erases the content. Okay. Now, what if I wanted to append to it? Instead of using W, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use append. If I use the flag A, it's going to append to the file instead. Let's close the file. Let's run our program. I ran it a second time. Now I want to run it a third time. So now I ran it 3 times. Once before and twice now. it didn't append. What happened? Let's try writing it one more time. Oh, I forgot the .text. It probably created another file. Let's try one more time. So that's the second time, and that's the third time. Now let's go back. Yeah, here it created a pets. We don't want that one. We want pets.text. And now I see that it appended to it several times. So every time I called this program, because I used append, it's now appending to the file. It's not erasing the content. If I erase this line and I go back and say just write, what's going to happen is that it's going to erase the contents. So let's run that again. Now it ran the program. We come back, and there, it erased the contents. So this is the difference between W and A. W erases the contents, A appends to it. So A appends to the file. Okay. Now, what if I forget to close? So let's go and erase this file. So here I'm going to erase both of them, pets and pets.text. And then I'm going to run this program. I ran it. I come here. I see that pets.text got created because the open creates the file. However, oh, I didn't. Okay, hold on. Let's comment out the close. I want to show you what happens when we comment out the close. Let's erase that again. Let's run it again. Stop and run. Okay. Now what I see the pets.text just got created, but this time it's empty. So the open command creates the file, and then because I forgot to call close, nothing got saved. So even though those commands, the right commands were there, because I didn't close, it didn't get saved. So imagine that the close is kind of like a save. That's what the close is doing. So this is how you write to files. Okay, so you open the file for writing or appending, and then you call write, and then you close the file. Now, what if I wanted to put the file in a specific location? So I don't want it to go to this weird mu folder. I want it to go to my desktop. Well, let me figure out where my desktop is first. So let me close some windows. And what you do is you just go to any file on the desktop. I'm going to just create a new file here. I'm going to say new text document. And let's call it test.text. And if I right click on this file and go to properties, it's going to show me where this file is located. So it's showing me that it's in C users, my username desktop. So if you have a location and you don't know where that location is, you can right click on the file to get the properties. So this is where the file is. Okay, so I'm going to go to my program, and here what I want to do is I'm going to create another file handle, and I'm going to open, and I'm going to paste this, and I'm going to put an R here to tell the computer this is a raw location. Now here what I want to do is I want to create another pets.text over here in this folder. So I'm going to this folder and saying I want you to create me a pets.text, and I want you to write to it. Okay, and let's make sure we close so we don't forget. And I'm going to write the same things that I wrote. So I'm just going to copy this code again here. Now I'm going to run this code one time, and now I'm going to go to my desktop, and I should see a pets.text. Yep, it just got created, and it has the content there. So this is how you can choose a different location than the one in the same folder that you're running in. Instead of doing it this way, I could have also done it with double slashes. So instead of opening with the raw variable R, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use double slashes. Okay, so let me put those in. 2. Let's run this program. It ran. If I go to my desktop, I find pets.text got created again, and now it has the same contents again. So this is basically how you would write to a file. Okay, so again, I would put a star on this slide. You open the file name with W or A, and then you just call the write method as many times as you want, and then you close the file. Now let's look at an example here of how to do what we just did. So here we opened a file called fruits.txt for writing. We wrote banana, new line, apple, new line, grapes, new line. So now it's going to write each one on a separate line, and then we closed it. Okay. And if I want to later open this file and add to it, I would open it with the append flag, the A, instead. And here I'm adding now oranges and blueberries. So if I was to open this file later, I would find that it has 5 lines instead of 3 lines. And then we saw that sometimes if you want to specify the location, you have to put an R if you're using one single slash. And if you don't want to use the R for raw, just make sure your path has 2 double slashes in it.